Welcome to our Coach's Corner podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and I want to thank you for joining us as we turn up the heat by sharing our thoughts on health and fitness, along with some of our personal fitness experiences. Each episode, we'll be covering a wide variety of topics related to overall health and fitness with a no-fluff, real talk perspective.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Coach's Corner. Today, we will be discussing work-life balance, family, fitness, and how not to get fired. I'm your host, Dana, and I also have host Eric and Amy here in the studio.
Hey, guys.
Today, we have a lot to unpack with a topic that is at the forefront of people's minds on the daily. The question usually being, how do I manage it all? We want to welcome EXO's program manager at our Green Bay Fitness Center, Tracy Michaelwitz, to the show today. Welcome, Tracy.
Hey, guys. Thanks.
All right, so your favorite part of the day, you're in the hot seat. You've listened to our episodes. We're going to turn this over to Amy.
All right, Tracy, so you know the drill with these. These are rapid-fire questions. So I'm just going to fire them off, and I want you to just answer them as quick as you can. No pauses. You can do that. You ready?
All right.
All right, here we go. What is your favorite color?
Red.
What was your first job?
Cashier at a grocery store.
How old are your daughters?
2.5 and 1.
Salty or sweet snacks?
For sure sweet.
What's your coffee order?
Latte. I usually do decaf, non-fat, and then
decaf?
this time of year, pumpkin spice.
Yes.
Okay.
But, yes, I'm a latte
Decaf
girl
like an
myself.
afternoon coffee?
I'm a big coffee drinker outside of Starbucks, so when I go there, I try and not take in any more caffeine.
Okay.
Nice. Morning person or night owl?
I would probably say more towards morning.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Math.
Ew.
God.
What's your favorite season?
Summer.
What is your favorite exercise?
Exercise, probably cycling.
Oh, very
Running.
nice. Do you collect anything?
Currently, no. I did a lot when I was growing up, though.
Like what?
Gosh, I remember collecting rocks, like pencils. I have all sorts of pencils that I'm using now from when I was younger.
Oh, me too. I love school supplies.
I love regular pencils. And then just things like that were trending at the time. Like I had a small troll collection and stuff like that.
I love it. And then our last question's going to roll right into our topic, but how many hours of sleep do you get a night?
I would say probably 6 to 7, but broken up. Not usually in one lump sum.
But you're
That's
telling
still
me
good. That's still
you
good.
get 7 hours of
But I'll
sleep
take
Yeah, I'm jealous.
with,
2 under 2.
with two babies under 3, right? Your
Under
oldest
3?
is just turned 3, correct?
She's 2, not even. She's 2.5.
Ah, 2 under 2.
2 under 2. Like, what are you doing? Tell the world. Tell the world. Like, you're the real
Do you like a lot of
MVP.
melatonin in your diet?
I don't know. I
It's
feel
a
like I
decaf.
tried to
It's a
train them
decaf.
at a super young age.
Man.
You will sleep.
That's really good. We'll get into this later a little bit more on. As you can see, this is why we have Tracy on the show today. She has 2 kids under 2 and is getting 7 hours of sleep. But no, really, as we go into this, like first and foremost, like with being, dedicated to fitness, to family, as well as not getting fired for what you do day in and day out.
She's still here.
Yeah, she's still here. How do you define work-life balance?
Well, I look at it as work as the portion of your day or the job that you do that you basically get paid for. So for me, it's being a program manager with Exos at Humana. Everything, to me, life would be everything else outside of that. So the 8, 9, 10 hours that go towards my work every day would be, or my job every day would be work. And then everything else outside of that, your family, your friends, keeping up your home, your personal time, everything else would be considered life.
And I know when we talked about this, Eric, you have a little bit of a different take.
Yeah.
Eric, He is a new father. India is 1.5.
Yep,
I
one
believe.
and a half.
So still relatively new. But you have a little bit of a different outlook on work-life balance, what it is. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely different. I see everything as work, not in the negative sense, but in the sense that you want to be successful in everything you do, whether that's family, whether that's your vocation, whether that's personal health and fitness. I see it as work. So for the balance for me is having all that reach its potential that it can, or the goals that I set for it, and that's the balance. So if you're missing one, then you're out of balance. If everything's where you want it to be, then that's a glorious, balanced life.
And I think whether you have kids, whether it's your family, whether it's spouse, whether it's friends, Amy, how do you find yourself? Both of us are at different stages of life than Tracy or Eric. Both of us don't have children, but we enjoy different things and trying to balance friends, family, fitness, careers. How have you found yourself doing?
Recently, yeah.
Thriving.
Yes, doing good. I've had the best year yet, honestly. This has been great. But the balance part is hard. I mean, I don't have kids, but it is balancing work and life with other things. 'Cause I am getting out and doing a lot. I have a whole new friend group, and we try to do something most days, and definitely every weekend. But that balance for me, I try to just be very efficient during my work hours, and I've gotten a lot better at just not really feeling that pressure constantly throughout the whole day outside of those hours to be on with work. So I'm kind of all right, I'm working from here to here. I gotta really focus and get what I need to get done. And so I do have that time where I can turn off and unplug. Some people, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're doing things like that, you don't really unplug. Or even if you're just a normal person working at home, a lot of times those lines get blurred. If your computer's at home and you're, just sneaking into your little office at 8 p.m. and checking emails to get ahead of things. I've stopped doing that. I don't really do that. I have my work hours, and then I have my me hours, and that kind of helps me keep things.
There's a quote I heard somebody say, and it really resonated with me around balance and getting everything done. He said, no matter what you're doing, be 100% in or committed.
Yeah.
Whether that's work, whether that's family. Sometimes you see people on the couch, they're trying to be with their family, but they're on their phones doing something else. So they're not 100% in or committed with their family or spouse, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people consider balance oh, well, I'm with my family, but I'm working at the same time, so it's balanced. But I don't feel like that's really
No.
balance.
Right,
I feel
right.
balance is having things in their place, in their set routine, and you can give 100% of what you're doing when you're doing it.
Yep.
And I'm along with that. I feel like it's being present. And,
Exactly. That's a good word. Yeah,
and a
present.
lot of people are doing things, but they're not present for them. And I think a big thing for me is this has been my major focus for probably 3 years now, honestly, maybe even a little bit before. My sole focus has been to find balance across family, my career, fitness, and what I would call social priorities. What do I want to do? What do I want to enjoy? What brings me fulfillment? How do I feel fulfilled?
That's hard to find. A lot of people struggle with that.
And I think they don't ask the question though, because they're too career will make me fulfilled, marriage will make me fulfilled.
Yeah.
Kids will make me fulfilled, and it's what fulfills you? What fills your cup up? And for me, it's nature. So anything in nature, and just quiet scenery, coffee on a Saturday morning in the woods or a beach is my cup runneth over.
Yeah.
And it's just finding those times where I used to, every Sunday around 7 p.m. I would check emails to get ahead, because Monday I did not want to go in blindsided.
Open up 30 emails.
Of what may have transpired from Friday at 6 p.m. whatever. I no longer do that.
Yeah.
Because, and this was hard to break, because this was a 4-year span of every Sunday it'd be between 7 and 8 o'clock. I would check it. Granted, I will tell you this, I felt better on a Monday morning when I did that. But I felt terrible on Sunday night when, why are you ruining a perfectly good rest day? It is a rest
Right.
Yeah.
day. What is going to be the difference between 7 p.m. on a Sunday and 8 a.m. on a Monday? Like, you're truly taking your personal time of being present away
Yeah.
to always prepare for what's next. And I feel like
Right.
that's the balance piece of
Yeah.
like not always having to be prepared for what's next, but being prepared for right now.
I know we'll get into that later, but that's almost like that trickle down from the top of that pressure. Somebody's always got to be on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the hustle culture too. Like
Culture.
it's like
100%.
it's like glorified to overwork and to be busy
Yeah.
and to whatever. And then
Yeah.
that's
And what I
Nothing
realized
these
too, like for me as a leader, like in our organization, what does that set?
Yeah.
And will my team feel obligated if I'm just catching up on emails, right? So I'm like, everything's flowing and I'm in a flow state.
Right.
And I'm just like, I would like this to get done. I'm sending this out to my team and they receive it because everyone has emails on their phone now. They receive it at 8:00 p.m. Like some people would feel obligated to like
Yeah.
start doing something. And that's not the culture I want to
Even
create
if
as a
the
leader.
person says, "Oh, I may send you emails at night. Don't feel like you
Yeah.
have to look at them." Well, I kind of do.
Yeah,
but-
because I have
don't.
stuff to do.
Right.
I
Good
do
for
not.
you.
I turned it off.
I think this goes right into what we want to go on next is like, again, how do you find the balance? It's good and fine to talk about how you find the balance. How do you prioritize? I think we'll focus around like family. And when I say family, I mean friends too, like social. So family, social, and career. How do you prioritize both? And what is it like for you? Tracy, we'll start with you.
Well, for me personally, I feel like that's like a day-to-day battle. It's something that there are many days that I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm not balancing everything. But I'm notoriously a planner. So I usually try to, like this time of the month, I'll look ahead at the next month and just see what do my kids' schedule look like? What does it look like when it comes to who's watching them, where they have to be, to make sure that's locked in. Look at my schedule, my husband's schedule, so kind of get some of those things ironed down, locked in, and then from there plan around it. So I try to plan, meals based on our schedule. And this isn't something I feel like I get overwhelmed really easily if I am all of a sudden like, I have to plan this and I have to get this figured out. So this isn't something that I just sit down and spend like 3 hours getting everything planned out. But, I take a little time to look ahead, see what I can prepare for in advance, what's locked in, and then how I can shift things around it. But a lot of times, me personally, it's something that, may just pop up on a random day. I know we talked about planning and we talked about being spontaneous, but we may plan to have, I may plan to have time with my family, and then somebody gets sick and, kind of throws that out of the water. So
It's been my whole year, it
sometimes
feels
it is-
like.
right.
Just
So
adapt and
sometimes
move.
Yeah.
it's like planning as much as I can, but then also knowing that what I have planned is not locked in stone and it's going to change on a day-to-day basis, and just being able to flow with it.
Yeah, Eric, what's it like for you? Because Indy's a little bit younger. Well, she's the same age as Tracy's youngest. Like, how's it been for you? Like, that's a whole change.
Yeah, it's a big change.
It's your first child. So how's it been? How are you prioritizing? And like, have you found the balance?
That's a great question. I can't know that I say yes to that yet, but everything's kind of built around her being our daughter, just because that's kind of the priority right now. We've desperately been lacking on the whole social aspect of planning. And part of that is our fault because we've been focused on work, focused on her. We don't want to be away from her, but at the same time, it's like we don't feel like we can go out and talk to people and have a drink and do this and that. So hopefully that gets better, but we are very regimented. We know when we wake up, we know when we have breakfast for her, we know when we take her to daycare, pick her up, et cetera, et cetera. So that has helped us kind of find the balance with her, with the rest of our lives. If something goes wrong with her, that throws off everything. So, for instance, like I was supposed to do an event, I think this is in July, one of our Yoga and Brews event. I wasn't able to because I had COVID. And week after that, her daycare got closed down. So it's like, now I got to work from home. So that's almost like if you take the 10 days and the extra time, it's almost 3 weeks that you got to be out from stuff.
Yeah. I feel like
It's
most
crazy.
people like have not had balance for like 3 years now
Yeah.
with COVID, 2 years at least. With COVID, like the real MVPs were people with young kids, like teaching them at like school kid age and then
Yeah, I
having
don't
to
know how
work.
they
Like,
did that.
wow. So I don't think many people have had balance, and we're just now getting back to like either a hybrid work setting, a full work
Yeah.
from home setting, which that can often be more rough. And I think we've talked about that in previous episodes, is more difficult to find balance when you're work from home because you're like just working at random type of things. It's like your
Yeah.
routine can be really off.
My wife has been that way. She went full, probably 70 hours a week at somewhere, at a location working. Then she went full work at home, just cold turkey.
Oh, wow.
And she's been like losing her mind. She needs to see people and be around people.
And then that's where you talk about like the social aspect. I think like I think about a balanced approach as like having your buckets of like your social bucket, your career bucket, like your family
Yep.
bucket, your friends bucket, and like what fulfills you bucket. And like all of them need like 20% to really like for you to thrive. And there's
Yeah.
gonna be like, Amy loves this word, seasons.
Oh man, we're doing this again.
Let's reverse. There's gonna be times in your life. Season sounds so much better.
Seasons of life.
There's gonna be times where one is gonna get more than the other. But I think if we're at a continued search for like all of them to have some of it poured into, then we'll be okay. So like I want to talk about nutrition really quick because I think that's where balance is really difficult with anyone, let alone people that are very career focused, have children, just anybody in general. So like, how do you all tackle it? Tracy, we'll go back to you, but I want to hear Amy's perspective as well. And then we'll circle the table on this one. So, Tracy, what's it like for you in your nutrition?
Yeah, I try to keep it pretty simple for my family. With my kids being younger, my main focus is still just getting them used to different tastes and different flavors. And then also I want them to experience, different treats and sweets, and not have it be something that they never know what it tastes like. So then as soon as they are exposed to them, they just like inhale them and engorge themselves. So
That's kind of me as a kid.
just speaking from experience. No, I usually try with them to mainly just incorporate a fruit and or a vegetable at every time that they eat, meals and snacks. That obviously doesn't work out every single time, but
Amen.
that's our goal. And then again, trying to limit the sweets and treats that they have, but making sure that they are at least exposed to them so that they don't feel like they have to overindulge every time they do have them.
You always got to keep that one treat in the back pocket to get them to kind of behave in public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was me. My mom never bought that stuff, and so like anytime we would get like a thing of like little Debbie snack cakes, we'd only make it like one day because I'm like, oh, I never get this. I gotta eat it all. So that's good. Good. Sprinkle it in.
Like, how far in advance do you plan? Like, is there any tips and tricks you have for like parents with little ones, or like just to feed a whole family and still be like just conscious of what you're putting in your body?
My kids are pretty low maintenance when it comes to eating. They love fruits and vegetables, and they'll eat it right out of the can or frozen, fresh, whatever. So we try and keep frozen vegetables on hand, canned fruit and vegetables. Like, I'm not kidding you. We'll open up a can of beets, and they will chow them down. I have a picture that I sent to my family of my daughter. She had mac and cheese on her plate and beets, and she's just chowing down on the beets, and the mac and cheese is sitting until her beets are gone.
So
So
your
for
kids
some,
are
I
crushing
mean,
beats, 7 hours of
Crushing
sleep.
beets.
Like, what
No
are you
kidding.
doing? Like, I told you, MVP.
I don't know. I feel like I'm just a very laid back person in general, and I'm trying to teach them the same thing. So I want them to be comfortable eating different foods and not feel like it has to be a certain standard. I don't think a lot of times you can plan for that. I have a nephew that from the get-go would not eat vegetables. Like my sister would try and squeeze them and hide them in his meals, and he would literally like take a bite of something and then spit out the vegetables. Like he knew that they were in there. So I honestly think a lot of it is that I just got lucky with the kids that I have, but we've just been rolling with it, and I'm trying to make it last as long as I can. But I would say my big thing is just having fruits and vegetables on hand in whatever form that they will eat, and then snacks, like Eric mentioned before. Always having snacks available because my kids get hangry in a,
Oh my
in a
gosh,
second.
that's such
So
a real thing.
the last thing that I want is to be somewhere and then they just turn into monsters.
Children.
Yeah. Don't you want some?
Yeah,
Great.
Eric, what do you
Have
think?
kids, they said.
Eric, what's your thoughts on this? I know you all have like kind of gone back and forth,
Yeah.
but now have like a pretty good plan in
Yeah.
place of what you guys do.
Yeah, a lot of ours started back in, I'd say, not with our daughter necessarily, but when she got off of bottles, obviously. But in December, my wife and I made a commitment to fitness and nutrition. So we started using MyFitnessPal, tracking our macros, so our proteins, fats, and carbs. And with that, we make 2 weeks worth of like, we call it our menu, but kind of just a meal plan. So we know what we're going to be cooking on each night of the week. And then we take that, break it down, and make our grocery list from that.
Very nice.
Which Pinterest has been huge into coming up with meals because we've noticed there's some redundancy or there's some meals that are staple in there that we start getting tired of. So we go there, look for something new.
Awesome. Amy, I'll go to you because we both have different situations. Like it's a whole, like flip it on its head.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you're very social, right? You're living your best life. You're thriving. Kudos to Amy for this,
Great
by the way.
season. Great season.
Like we're gonna do a podcast called How to Meet Friends, and Amy's gonna lead this. So, but anyways, like Amy, how do you make nutrition a priority when you do have a thriving social life that is important to you right now?
Yeah.
How do you keep your nutrition in check?
Well, do I? No, I'm just kidding. So I've kind of adapted now and have more found a routine and stuff that works for me because for a while it was not very healthy because it's just me. And so I find it hard to...
It's hard to cook for yourself.
I don't want to cook for myself.
Right.
Like I don't like cooking anymore. I used to love it. I got burnt out. I don't want to cook anymore. And it's hard for me to do that just for me. And so for the longest time I wasn't. And I was just grazing snacks. Like a dinner might be some Cheez-Its or like whatever, like some cheese, like whatever I could find in the refrigerator. And I was starting to realize, well, I'm not feeling as good as I used to, and that's probably not a healthy way to continue. So what can I do? Because I still don't want to cook. Like I don't like touching meat. I don't like chicken, and it's just so slimy, and like I don't want to cook it. And I want to eat it because it's protein, and I want that. So what I started doing, like when I do eat at home, I buy pre-cooked meats from like Trader
some of
Joe's
them
or
are
whatever.
great.
Yeah, some
Like
of those
some
are
already
good.
grilled chicken. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's like, okay, I'll pay $1 more for something I'm actually going to eat than buy a whole package of organic chicken that I'm never going to cook because I just never want to get around to it. And it goes bad and I give it to my dog. Like I'll cook it for her.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing, like pre-cooked meats, and then I'll add a vegetable with it or something like that. And usually that vegetable is a bag of like frozen peas or frozen carrots, and you pop it in the microwave. It takes a minute. It's
quick.
great. But the other, like the good thing about cooking for me is like I don't need anything fancy. Like I know I can just eat like a hunk of chicken and some vegetables and like maybe some noodles or rice or something like that and call it a day. So that's been nice. But I do go out and eat a lot and do that a lot. And at first it was something new for me. Like I never just like gone out to eat that much my whole life. But it's like, oh, now I have people to go with, and now I'm out and I'm doing things, and so that was getting unhealthy for a while too, and expensive.
Expensive, yeah.
but very unhealthy because it was still new and exciting, like similar to those Little Debbie's as a kid. Like I just hadn't had it, and so you get exposed to it, and you're like, oh yeah, let's go. So I was getting like the fried chicken, the big full meals every time, and so now I'm like, okay, well I do this a lot. Like it's not as special anymore. Like I can get a salad, I can get a salad today. Like that's gonna be good for me. So I've kind of found balance there in that you can still eat healthy out as well. And so I've found, some favorite places that I go. I have some favorite dishes, and they're not, not as big, or they're healthier. They got vegetables and stuff like that. So that's kind of what's helped me with both going out and being in and still being able to eat healthy with not having to go crazy with the meal prep containers and the hours of cooking on Sunday. And no, I'm not doing that yet.
I think it's what I'm hearing like from everyone is like, no matter what your lifestyle is like, no matter if you don't have kids, whether you do have kids, whether you have a bunch, whether you just have one, whether they're older or younger, it's just you and your spouse, is like, everyone has to just find their approach.
Yeah.
Like, I think once they find the approach and that approach works for them, I think that's the biggest thing is individuals, they develop a plan that's really unrealistic and it doesn't work for them. So they throw every bit of nutrition to the wayside and say, oh, I can't do it, when they just maybe haven't found really what works for you. Because I think what you've heard is, you have 3 people, I didn't include mine, but like mine is different from theirs, 4 people that approach nutrition in a different way, but it works for them, it's sustainable for them, and they're overall eating healthy things. And so I think it just it depends on, one, you have to prioritize it, and then figure out what works for you and your family or your loved ones, or what works with your lifestyle right now. And that's the biggest thing, because it's usually trial and error.
I also think don't overthink it too. Like,
keep it simple.
I grew up, my mom would make full, almost like a full Thanksgiving dinner, every night, just about.
Yeah, 3, 4 sides,
in casserole dishes, and a big fancy meat dish, and a whatever, and that in my mind for the longest time was dinner.
Same.
And so in a past season, I was feeling the pressure to put that kind of dinner on the table, and I just I got burnt out. I was like, this is just unsustainable. I can't do this. And so it's just finding what works for you. Just eat a vegetable, eat a protein, and eat a carb.
There you go.
Get a noodle or a rice, and then some kind of vegetable,
Potato,
and then meat or beans if you're vegan, or tofu, or whatever. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it.
I feel like the next question kind of goes into this, because we've been talking about so much structure and planning. Do you all ever feel like it takes away from spontaneous, joyous moments in your life? Like, Tracy, we'll go back to you. We've kind of been doing a round table. Do you ever feel that way?
Maybe sometimes, but like I said, I'm one that's notorious for planning. So my husband is more the spontaneous person, and I feel like it's a nice balance between us, because he's one that's going to randomly on a Saturday morning say, let's pick up and go here and spend the night, go somewhere for the weekend. And I'm the one over here that's like, I didn't plan for this. We got to pack everything, and how are we going to work around naps and meals and everything. So I think, first off, I feel like a lot of planning goes into kids when they're younger. And once they start to get my oldest, even now, she's not on bottles anymore. She only naps 1 time a day. And that's only going to happen for another year or so. So it is a short time frame that you do have to be, or feel like you have to be a little more structured, and then things open up a little bit. But when it comes to, losing that spontaneity, it's only if you let it. There are still opportunities for you to be able to, pick up and do things last minute, or change up your meal plan, or, just do some things completely different than what you had planned.
Yeah, and I think it goes again, we're going back to the social media era, and what you see on, social media or on TV. I think I've talked about this before, but the most unrealistic thing ever on TV is when you see a full-ass family sitting down for breakfast before school and work.
Yeah, no chance.
I don't think that's ever happened for me. when does that happen? Or then you see someone with 5 kids and they're perfectly dressed in all the same thing with all the exact hairdo, and they look so perfect. They have home videos, all that.
I block those people.
Yeah. Like, nope, not today, Sally. But it's like with that's mostly you're not seeing their behind the scenes reels, which now luckily some people are showing those. But it's like you don't have to compare to that. And like what Tracy said, that like one, that's not real, but also what Tracy said is this isn't going to be forever. Like the extra planning with little ones, like it's only for a really short period of time that the spontaneity will come back eventually. So Eric, how do you feel about that?
I think it does and it doesn't. It does if you get carried away with time blocking and forget about the social side of it, or the emotional side of it, stuff that makes you happy. I've been in this position. I've done this to myself, unfortunately, because you get so obsessed with your goals, like ours are heavy financial goals or work goals, that you kind of negate the stuff that actually makes you happy, like intentionally, because you're like, that's not going to help me reach my financial goals.
But it does.
Exactly. And my wife told me that, probably 3 months ago. She's like, did you ever think that maybe some of the stuff you're leaving out on purpose is actually what's keeping you from hitting some of these goals? I was like, no.
You're wrong. No.
Right.
I think you're exactly right. Like for me, I've had to find, I used to be extremely bad at this too. Like I almost became obsessive with being so structured that I had no spontaneity anymore. And like, that's literally when I'm at my best self and my most joyous. And so for a while, like really when I got in this role with Exos for probably the first 2.5 years, it was so structured all the time. I mean, I would literally wake up, I'd have breakfast every day. Everything is packed. I would go to work. I would leave work. I would work out. I would go home, eat dinner, and then work again till I went to bed. And this was for a straight 2.5 years. And it got to the point where like I literally felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown but it was a lot was self-inflicted because of the expectation like I put on myself with career. And what I've realized is I structure certain parts of my life. So my career is very structured. My work day is usually pretty structured. My health goals are very structured. Beyond that, it's very joyous. So it's very laid back. It's very, when I'm outside of work, and if I'm in a group setting, I actually don't like to be the one to make decisions because I have to do that in my job.
Interesting.
So I'm more of a person that's like, I'm down for whatever, really laid back. I'm going to have fun at whatever I do. But then it's like, how do I bleed both of those together? Because that Dana is so much more fun than work Dana. So it's like, how do I blend those together? But that's currently what really works for me is like certain parts of my day-to-day are structured. And then really my social life and those things that bring me joy are really more spontaneous. And I'm fortunate enough that I can have spontaneous moments where I'm like, I'm going to go to Red River Gorge and hike a mountain this weekend. Like those type of things. But I must make myself do that to be like, okay, I'm going to go.
So did that switch happen when you stopped feeling like you had to be on all the time?
Yes. So I think that leads to our next question is like, and Amy, I'm going to start with you here. Like, and it doesn't have to just be you, but do you think a lot of that comes from, you know, the structure and the loss of like joyous moments and us feeling so like we have to do this in this, I would say, American culture, honestly. Is that because like there's fear with employees like not being turned on all the time? Do they feel that fear of not always being plugged in?
Kind of. So, and I feel like COVID really changed this a lot for me too, but like, and like the way that my role is a little different with some work at home days and stuff like that. But it was previously, you know, if you're here from 8 hours, you know, you're here from here to here for 8 hours. And, you know, like you're here and you're where you're expected to be. When we went home, it was a little harder because I was like, oh no, like I have to really show what I'm doing here because I no one's looking at me. Like I got to keep wiggling the mouse. I got to keep staying online. Like I gotta, like it freaked me out for a while. And I felt like I had to be like tied to my computer to like show like value or worth or whatever. Like I'm still doing things. And I've shifted a little bit more to like make sure I get everything I'm supposed to get done and not feeling like that has to be like just glued to my computer for 8 hours straight. Like I'll get up and take a walk or I'll move and that's actually helped me be more productive and more efficient and actually get important things done and not just have a butt in a chair for 8 hours.
Yep. I think that again, it all goes back to culture too.
Yep.
It's like what the culture is of your workplace. Like what does that really look like? And unfortunately, it's not the same for everyone. And unfortunately, it's most likely the like, you are plugged in. And it's like, I think some get a high off that though too.
But what's my incentive to like do more? Okay, so like what is it? I don't know if it's an Elon Musk quote or whatever, but it's like if you give yourself 3 weeks to do it, it'll take you 3 weeks. Or if you give yourself 3 days, it'll take you 3 days or something.
If you give yourself like 30 days to clean your house, it'll take 30 days to clean your house. If you give yourself
3
like
hours.
3 hours, you'll get it done in like 30 minutes or something like that.
So I feel like I focus more on efficiency over like time
productivity
sitting.
versus butt in the seat.
Where do you feel like that balance is, Eric? And I know you balance a lot of different things. So do you feel like that comes from, in our title it says so you don't get fired. Like, do you feel like there's a fear from employees that they are going to get fired if they are not like fully just 125% in?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the people that get the high off of being plugged in all the time, maybe because it's a controlled thing, I don't know. But I honestly feel that individuals, if they know they've been productive, they know they've done what they need to do, they can have an easier time stepping away from that and not feeling like they have to be plugged in. Versus if they haven't done stuff, then all of a sudden they get an email, hey, can you do this and that? They're like, oh, crap, did I not do that? Did I forget to do this? Did I do it wrong? Etc.
I'm a big to-do list person. I got to have everything written out, and it's so satisfying to check something off.
It is very satisfying, and I'm more in a role now that has moved back to like a lot of task-oriented stuff. I was in a role before where I was tasked with like creating a vision of like where I wanted to take this team. And I found that to be much more difficult because you're not on time constraints. You're like, this is my long-term vision of where I want this entire team to be. Like, what do I have to do to get there? And it's not like you have to do this. It's like, I had to give myself timelines. Like, okay, I'm going to create this by this time. And I actually had my boss at the time send me calendar invites that it's due. Like, it wasn't requested by her at that time, but to send me calendar invites. So, like, because my role had changed so much, it was just like, I want you to create this type of team. Okay, go. And it's like, okay. So it was a lot less task oriented. So now it was like, I don't know, but it does feel really good to like check
I do good with
something off.
tasks. I have a hard time with that overall
Vision.
stuff.
It really did help me like start to love that stuff though. Like I love doing like strategic vision work and long-term goal setting. I really like, but I'll usually work backwards. So it's helped me. But anyway, so dedication to health. Like we've talked about nutrition. Where the hell do people get time to work out?
We haven't even touched on that yet. And I feel like the day is full.
We haven't even went there. So I kind of want to like close out with that piece and a dedication to our health, because without our health, we can't do any of this. Like you can't care for your young daughters.
Right.
Like social lives get interrupted. Physical health is very much like required to do a lot of things in our world today.
And keeping up your fitness and nutrition helps with like not getting sick as much, which can help keep you on track with things.
100%. Like we'll start with Tracy again. 2 kids under 2. Where does like a dedication to health come into play? Like is that a primary focus? If it is, like how does this work?
It's tough, and I honestly take advantage of the fact that I work in the fitness setting. So I have a fitness center right next door that is easy for me to access before, after, sometimes during the work, depending on what's on my schedule. But I've just learned to going back to seasons of life. I've learned that I'm in a season right now that my fitness goals are very different from where they were even 5 years ago. So I take advantage of the fact that I teach classes here, and then I try and fit in a few strength training workouts throughout the week, and then some walks, some extra activity. But I keep it pretty basic for myself, knowing that there's a lot on my plate outside of work. During COVID, I was a little more structured with my workouts, and I'm not a morning workout person, but I don't want to say I made myself, but I made a pact with myself, like, okay, you can do this twice a week, and then the other mornings you can relax and sip your coffee. So I did kind of play around with the timing of when I was able to fit in my workouts, just because it's not at my leisure anymore. But like I said, I would say my biggest thing for me is just adjusting my goals to fit the lifestyle that I'm in right now.
I think you have to ask yourself, like, I go back to this all the time, is it a non-negotiable? If your health is a non-negotiable and fitness is a non-negotiable to you, where there is a will, there is a way. Not to say that that's going to be easy in any regard. And also, like you mentioned, like, it may look different than 5 years ago did, but like, you can't compare yourself to 5 years ago you, or if I'm in a different like part of my life than Tracy is, just from our circumstances, basically. Like, she can't compare to where I am, and I can't relate to where she is, right? So it's like, I think that piece is important. And it's like, a lot of people think, oh, if I don't get 5 days in, if I don't get 4 days in, what's the point? And it's like, you do not even understand, like, you can get 2 workouts a week and still see some effect from 2 workouts a week. So at that point, I think, like, is it a non-negotiable? Yeah. I have many parents of young kids that their bedtime is a little bit earlier. It's more around like 8 o'clock. And they've bought some home equipment, and they do all of their workouts when their kids go to bed.
Nice.
So I know for them that's not an ideal time. Like, they'd rather work out right after work, or some are morning people, but that's not an option. But their health is a non-negotiable, so they just get it in when they can. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, so ours is a little different. So the gym that I go to, it has a daycare, which is huge.
So nice.
So on my days,
why do they not all have daycares?
Right? It doesn't make sense. The days I work at home, that's kind of my midday break, is going and getting my workout in. So days I'm in the office, I'll go pick up my daughter, take her to the gym. She can play there for an hour.
And they love that.
And they love it. Yeah, there's all kinds of kids there.
Yes.
And then get it in there. But for me, it really started with making a commitment to it and prioritizing an hour a day to get that done.
Yeah, I think also, like, the time commitment, even if it's not an hour a day, like a 30-minute workout. Like, you think about people that go to the gym and they do a little lift in here, they do a little scroll in here, they do a little lift in here, they do a little scroll in here. They're probably really only working out 30 minutes. So if you can really commit to like 30 minutes, no interruption, like, you are pushing it, that is a significant amount of time that is going to improve your health outcomes. Amy, what type of workouts would you recommend for just like busy people? What have you seen in the industry for overall health?
Well, so like for me, for working out, I know if I don't do it in the morning, it's not going to happen just because I have a lot going on after work.
Girl.
Or maybe I might go for a run after work or something if the weather's nice. But like a gym workout has to happen in the morning for me, or it's not going to happen. But I think something that really hit me specifically over COVID, and that mindset has stayed with me, but just the importance of even those quick little workouts, it's consistency over like anything. No matter what it
consistency
is, even
king in everything.
I mean, you're saying even 30-minute workouts, even a 10, 15-minute workout is better than nothing, especially if you're doing that every day, a couple days. I mean, no matter what, if you can be consistent with whatever it is, that's going to be the best kind of workout for you.
Oh,
Hands
100%. Like consistency in everything, no matter what it is. Like we're talking about balance is so hard to find because it's so hard to stay consistent in all of those things, right? So it's the same thing with nutrition, with working out, with achieving your goals in your career, but still being very present again for your family. So you don't have to do everything great, but it's like filling those buckets up.
I remember, and I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was in this willpower book that I read, and it was if you are going to make a decision one day, picture looked at the end of the year if you made that same decision if you did that every single day, because you don't have more willpower the next day than you do today. Like 100%. That's not going to happen. So you know, if you're like, oh well, I didn't eat healthy today, but I'll do it tomorrow, you're not going to want to do it tomorrow. So like if you do that every single day for a year, think of how that's going to add up. But the same thing is true if it's just like a 10-minute workout. And you skip that, think about at the end of the year, if you skip that workout every single day versus if you just did that 10, 15 minutes every single day, that compounding at the end of the year, that adds up.
Yeah. So as we close this out, I think you just gave your piece of advice.
Consistency.
Eric, Tracy, what would you give as like your one piece of advice? Eric, we'll start with you.
Man, that's a good one. One piece of advice. I would say just be committed. Be full in, be present, as Dana said, to the situation that you're in, because that's ultimately going to help you mentally. And that'll help you kind of unplug too. If you're in the moment, you're present with your family, you're present with your fitness, then you're not constantly stressed about what's going on elsewhere.
Very nice. Tracy.
Gosh, two things come to mind. I would say, first off, don't be afraid to ask for help if you feel like you need it, or if you think that. Yeah, and it is. It's 100% hard to do. But I think, like, how easy would it be if I, was running to Costco and I had a friend of mine say, hey, can you pick up a few things for me? And I did it for them and it saved them the trip. Vice versa, the same thing. So whatever it is, don't be afraid to reach out to family, friends, whoever, to ask for help if you need it. And then the other big thing is that tomorrow is always a fresh start. So if you get to the end of the day and it's been rocky and it didn't go any way that you had planned, you always have tomorrow for things to be different. So think of it as like when I used to play Tetris when I was younger, and you'd start off the game and you'd just have, things won't go your way right away, and so you'd hit reset and start over. I kind of think of it that way. You're playing a video game, things aren't going your way, you go to bed, you reset everything, and then the next morning you can start fresh.
I love that. My final piece would be just don't forget the joyous moments. Like, don't forget the things that bring you joy as an individual. So not as a parent, not as a spouse, not as a partner, but as a individual, and try to get those in sparingly. Amy got one more.
I had one more. So don't overthink things, and don't put so much pressure on yourself to do like big crazy things. Like little things, like my store-bought cooked meats.
Little things, store-bought cooked meats. We will end it there. Do the little things savagely well. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.